Tech. There we go.
All right. Do you want me to kick off?
That would be
All
great.
right.
Thanks, Samantha.
Ready to go? We're starting a little bit early, but that's okay. Yeah, good morning, everyone, and welcome to session 3 of our Skyline and Teachers Buddy series on AI in schools. We're so pleased to have you here. I'm Samantha McRae. I'm the CEO of the Skyline Education Foundation. I moved here a couple of years ago after a long career in healthcare. I have 2 grown-up kids, and I'm incredibly proud of the work that we do, helping make education fairer no matter where a child lives. There's 3 quick things before we start. So one, this session's being recorded and we'll send the recording and slides out tomorrow. Well, I won't, but someone on Ben's team will. 2, please drop any questions in the Q&A or chat as we go. We'll answer as many as we can towards the end. And 3, if anything technical goes sideways, the team is here in the chat and can help you out. So, just a quick reminder of where we are in the series. So, we're at 3 today. Series 1 was the landscape, what AI in schools actually looks like right now. Session 2 covered assessment and academic integrity. Session 4, which will be on Thursday, will cover implementation from policy to practice. And today, session 3 is all about your staff, the single biggest variable determining whether your AI strategy works or stalls. We picked this topic because it's the one that we hear the most frustration about from school leaders, such as we ran a workshop and nothing changed. Half my staff are excited, half are resistant. I don't know where to start with the teachers who don't want to engage. So in the next 45 minutes, we're going to give you a framework for thinking about those conversations, 3 teacher personas you'll recognise immediately, and practical strategies you can take back to your school this week. So, delivering this session today is Beck from Teachers Buddy. Beck is stepping in for co-founder Ben. Beck has been a primary school teacher for a decade and then spent the last 5 years in EdTech. Her role at Teachers Buddy is in school implementation. So, working with your staff is her bread and butter. So, Beck, over to you.
Thank you, Samantha. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to start by just acknowledging the people who have joined us. You are extremely busy leading schools and have a lot on your plate, so it means a lot to us that you have joined us here today. Um, yes, as Samantha said, my name's Beck. I'm from Teachers Buddy, and my role is leading school implementation. So, being with teachers during the integration of AI is something that I do almost daily now, which I'm incredibly passionate about empowering teachers and giving them opportunities to really focus on their craft. And Teachers Buddy is an opportunity for them to really do that. So, as Samantha said, I'm stepping in for Ben today, our co-founder. We have both put an enormous amount of thought into this session, and I'm looking forward to walking you through it. So, today in this session, we'll tackle what's arguably the single biggest factor of whether your AI strategy works, and that is your teachers. So, there's 3 things we'll cover in the next half hour, 45 minutes. The first is why most AI professional development is not working, and we've got a framework that helps explain why. Second, we'll be looking at mapping where your staff actually are and what each of those groups needs. And third, the strategies that do work. So we will take a live look at what an AI supported PD can look like in practice through the Teachers Buddy platform. So let's start with the problem. Here are 3 numbers to frame where we're at currently. So about 30% of teachers are using AI tools regularly. This statistic came from AITSL's survey they did in 2025. Now, this means that obviously 70% of teachers don't use AI regularly. And regularly is doing a lot of work here because regularly doesn't necessarily mean that it's pedagogically or securely sound. So we'll be looking at that. 2 weeks is the median time before teachers stop using a new AI tool. So even when teachers do start, most of them stop, and there's usually an adoption problem that hasn't been addressed. And the number one barrier to AI adoption, according to school leaders themselves, is a lack of confident and capable staff. So it's not necessarily a cost or an infrastructure problem. Occasionally, it can be about policy, but mostly it's people and it's people's readiness for change and for adoption. So we're going to have a look at Leon Furse. This is a really useful framework that Ben and I have come across. Leon Furse is a PhD candidate at Deakin Uni and he's a former English teacher. He argues that there are three distinct dimensions of AI expertise that teachers need, and that most of the PD that's being delivered is built only on one. So, dimension one is the technological experience. This is all about understanding how the AI tools work, what they can and can't do, how they prompt well. And in schools, obviously, we need to build staff confidence and fluency with those tools so that they can use them both safely and strategically. This is what virtually all AI PD currently focuses on. And it is necessary, but it's also the easiest to teach, which is why workshops default to it. But when you look at this exclusively on its own, it is actually the least useful of the three. So if we take a look at dimension two, the domain expertise, this is about the subject knowledge and pedagogy. So this is what teachers are applying to AI. For example, a humanities teacher will use their subject expertise to critique the AI generated interpretations and teach students to evaluate the bias, while a maths teacher is going to use it to verify solutions and ensure correct reasoning. So you can see the teacher's expertise is what's catching errors and critiquing the use of AI in ways that genuinely will support the learning. What they need is permission and some time to be able to reapply that. And then dimension three is the situated expertise. So this relates to the application of AI within the specific context of your school, your students, the subjects that you offer, the community values, rather than just a generic approach. So this has that equity lens. And for a principal, it means supporting your staff to experiment, to reflect, to develop context-specific practices instead of just enforcing a one-size-fits-all approach. It also highlights the importance of building collective expertise within your school so that the knowledge is shared, it's refined, it's grounded in real classroom experience relative to your school's context. Now, most AI PD, as I mentioned, builds on dimension one and it's ignoring dimensions two and three. And that's generally why teachers stop using the tool. So First says, if your AI PD only teaches teachers how to use Chat GPT, you've built one dimension out of three. Technological expertise is the easiest to teach and the least useful on its own. The value comes from teachers applying AI through the lens of their subject expertise and their knowledge of their students. So that's the test, really, for any AI training that you deliver in your school. Which dimension is it building? Because each of those three dimensions play out really differently depending on who's going to be sitting in the staff room at that time. Now, I want to introduce you to three teachers. Every school has a version of these three teachers, and I suspect as we go through them now, you'll start to picture, excuse me, specific faces from that you cross paths with in your staff room or in your office, So as I read out those personas, let's see which ones stick. Now, the first persona is the experienced resistor. So this is the teacher who has 25 years plus of teaching experience. They are excellent at their craft. They have high domain and situated expertise, and they tend to have low technological expertise. Now, there's often a genuine sense with this teacher that AI is a threat to what they value about their profession. So, what this teacher needs is for you, first and foremost, to honour their expertise. We want to be able to show them how AI can amplify what they're already doing well, not replace it. And pairing them with trusted colleagues for low stakes exploration can be a really great start. What you want to avoid is forcing attendance to any AI PD, diminishing any of their concerns as a resistance to change, or making adoption sound like it's inevitable, because this loses them permanently. Now, your second persona is that enthusiastic early adopter. So they're there already using 5 AI tools, they're evangelizing to colleagues, they've got high technological experience, but their domain and situated experience is variable. They're moving fast. Sometimes they're moving so fast they don't fully understand privacy or pedagogical impact. Now, their energy is your asset, but it needs channeling. So, ways to go about this is when you recognize these teachers in your staff room is to give them a formal leadership role, give them a title, and give them a time allocation. And we start to shift their PD away from discovering more tools and start to steer it towards the pedagogy, the privacy, the ethics, those dimensions that they're going to be weaker on. What you want to avoid with the enthusiastic early adopter is letting them run without guardrails. So we can't always assume that their enthusiasm equals an expertise. And third, the overwhelmed early career teacher. This is the teacher that's second year out. They're low across all 3 dimensions. They're barely keeping up with the planning, the differentiation, the behavior management, the parent communication. They know AI exists, but they don't have the bandwidth to explore it in detail. Now, these teachers need the cognitive load reduced, not added. AI needs to be embedded into the tools that they're already using and not give them something else that they need to learn on top of everything they're trying to grapple with at the moment. So the trap with this teacher is adding AI PD to the list of after school sessions when they're attending all the other things that they're trying to get their head around. And this is where we lose them. And I'm not talking about losing them necessarily from AI, but from the profession. So all 3 of these teachers, we can agree, are competent, they're caring, they really do have a desire to make a difference to their students. That's generally why they stepped into the profession. And all 3 of these teachers fundamentally need different support. So one AI PD session for your whole staff generally will reach that enthusiastic early adopter who didn't need it, and it'll lose the other 2. So before we move on, I just want to take a moment to look at this right to resist and think about that experienced resistor, that persona you've got in your staff, amongst your staff. Now, this is where a lot of school leaders get stuck, because what do you do with the teacher who just flatly refuses to engage with AI? FERS has an answer, and we've found it really useful when we're thinking about how we deliver PD across our schools. And he calls it the right to resist. So there's three distinctions that matter here. First, the right to resist is not the right to ignore. FIRS is clear that every teacher needs baseline AI literacy. Every teacher should understand what AI is, what it does, how it affects their students. That's got to be non-negotiable. But what FIRS is defending is a teacher's right to engage critically and then decide for themselves whether and how to use AI in their practice. So, secondly, resistance often signals legitimate professional concern, not ignorance. An experienced teacher who pushes back on AI often has genuine pedagogical concerns. Those reasons deserve engagement and inquiry and conversations rather than a dismissal. And if we start to label those experienced teachers as resistors of AI and we write them off, then we start to lose access to the 25 years of classroom wisdom that they have about what students need. And third, the forced adoption backfires. So teachers who are mandated to use AI tools, they don't understand or trust, then they start to become resentful, disengaged, or they're using the tools superficially just to comply. And that is not capability. And it just falls under the umbrella of compliance, and that where it can become a little brittle in the school. So when you're thinking about AI professional development in your school, we want to be creating pathways rather than mandates. So always starting with willing participants and building evidence, letting the results of what those participants are gaining do the convincing for the rest of your staff. And you might still have those teachers who are flat out refusing to engage in year one, and that's okay. Often, quietly, they'll start to adopt it in the second year, and especially if they are seeing colleagues that they trust using AI well. So, we've diagnosed the problem. Now, let's talk about what works. So, Rose Luckin at UCL Knowledge Lab is probably the most respected academic voice globally at the moment on AI readiness in schools, and her framework has 7 steps. So, I'm not going to go through all 7, but I want to focus specifically on step 1 and step 6. So, step 1 is excite. We want to build buy in before we build skill. How many school leaders are finding ways to get curiosity, excitement, autonomy from their teachers before introducing something new? And step 6 is apply, the implementation of the AI solution. How many people are jumping straight into introducing the tool first, and then they're expecting the excitement of the staff to follow afterwards? So the research shows that most schools actually do start at step 6. They buy the tool, they tell the teachers to use it, and Luckin's argument is that that's 5 steps too early, which is why the tool often will sit unused after 2 weeks. And then you want to notice step 7, which is iterate. So the AI adoption in your school is a cycle. It's not a project that will have an end date. It's going to need year-on-year work, not a long-term project with that hard beginning and hard ending. Okay, so Luckin's framework starts with excitement for a reason. If your staff aren't curious about AI, and if they see it as a threat or a burden, then no amount of training is going to stick. So we want to always start with wonder, not compliance. We're always trying to find ways to show staff what's possible before asking them to make changes. So a 15-minute demo at a staff meeting that that can do more for your long-term AI adoption than a 2-hour mandatory training session. And that's been backed by research, showing one specific tool and the impact that it has had positively on the teacher or the student is a lot more powerful than those bigger, lengthier training sessions. Okay, so the second framework that Ben and I have been looking at is from Matthew Esterman and Dr. Nick Jackson. So these are two Australian educators and they've written The Next Word, AI and Teachers. Their central insight is the barrier to AI adoption is not teacher ability, it's teacher bandwidth. So teachers aren't resistant generally because they lack ability. We all know this, but teachers are lacking time, energy, and clarity about what's expected. And we can sometimes misdiagnose that as an ability problem. And then with that, we prescribe the wrong medicine. So there's three practical moves that we can take on here. One is a shared language before a shared practice. So we want, as school leaders, to start to develop a common vocabulary for what AI is and what the school's position is. That has to come before you're asking for a behaviour change. Two is to build from the middle, not the top. So the most effective AI leaders in schools aren't necessarily the principals. They're usually your trusted middle leaders, like your heads of faculty or department, your teaching and learning coordinators. If you back them and get out of their way, that can be a really powerful way to adopt AI positively amongst your staff. And three is to acknowledge the bandwidth problem directly. So we don't want to pretend that AI is just one more thing. We've got to show teachers how AI can reduce their cognitive load before we ask them to invest time in learning it. Okay, so these four strategies that you could start with this term, term two, they're all low-cost strategies. These are all supported by the research that I've just walked you through. So one is to start to create an AI community of practice. At Teachers Buddy, we have been offering schools action research-based pilots of our AI tool so that you can have a structured and customized approach to evaluating if Teachers Buddy makes a difference to teacher efficacy in your school. And we're more than happy to speak with anyone individually about what that could look like for your particular context. The other ways is peer observation with an AI lens. So this is like adding one more question to the reflective practices that you already have set up at your school. So simply another layer of questioning, such as how did AI support this lesson and what would I do differently? This involves no new meetings, there's no additional costs, but it is encouraging that professional dialect amongst your staff. The third is the excite step, starting with wonder and not compliance. So carving out space for that 15-minute demo at a staff meeting to show a real tool doing something genuinely useful can spark that curiosity, but also give your teachers the autonomy to go forward and explore for themselves. And four is a whole school approach, not tech teacher only. So we're talking about building AI capacity across all teams, your admin team, your wellbeing team, your library team, you name the team. Because if AI is only living with your tech teachers or those teachers, the enthusiastic early adopters, it's going to stay in that silo and it doesn't support the students who are facing an AI world. So I guess if you took anything away from today's PD, it would be back that small group of respected teachers with time and authority and let that ripple spread because that is going to do way more than any whole staff mandate. Okay, I am going to now introduce you to Teachers Buddy. So, um, AI supported professional learning. What does this actually look like in practice? The only way I can really demonstrate that is if I give you a glimpse of it through the lens of a school adopting Teachers Buddy. So there's three design principles, and each one maps onto the research that we've just walked through. The first is AI readiness that targets your teachers at their point of need. So we've created an AI readiness survey that measures where each teacher currently sits in their confidence, their understanding, and their practical use of AI across 6 dimensions. So the 6 dimensions are awareness, experience, critical evaluation, classroom use, confidence, and professional leadership. Secondly, differentiated learning pathways. So basically, this just means different teachers get different support from us. Teachers who are only just getting started get structured scaffolding. They can have one-on-one interactions with me for 15 minutes to work on a specific tool or area of their teaching that they want some support in. Whereas your teachers who have AI as part of their workflow and they've really found their stride, and we want to provide space within that PD for them to explore some more innovative options, some more creative options that can excite them and increase the engagement they have with their students. So we basically take those three personas we spoke of earlier and we're building and crafting one PD session with pathways to meet each of those teachers. The third and final thing is that we want to generate useful content now in the PD session, not after it. So we know teachers build confidence by using AI to complete something that they can also at the same time check off their to-do list. So that's what we do in our PD sessions. Essentially, our aim is to have them walk away having generated a resource that they can use in their very next class. So all three of FIRS's dimensions are happening in our sessions. So we ensure that the staff are growing together through practice and in context. Ultimately, Teachers Buddy exists to empower teachers. So our product is teacher-centric, and that's because we believe that all teachers should spend time connecting with students and focusing on their teaching craft, not the paperwork that has to exist to get their job done. Okay, so I'm going to now, let's stop sharing my screen and jump over. I'm going to show you the flow on from a teacher completing our AI readiness survey to following through on one of the recommended next steps that we have for them. So bear with me. So imagine we have Sarah. She's the overwhelmed early career teacher. She teaches Year 10 English and she's just completed our survey. Let me share it with you. And you can see that upon completing the 14 questions or the 4 minutes of the survey, she's at a stage that we call finding my feet. Down here, we give Sarah some recommended next steps, something to try and something to reflect upon. So we really want that feeling of autonomy and choice about how they move through their professional development. So what I'm going to show you is Teacher's Buddy and being able to generate a rubric from scratch. Now, I've prepared this earlier for time's sake, but I want to show you firstly, can you see the rubric generator? Great. Thanks, Ben. So this is what our rubric generator looks like on Teacher's Buddy. If you think about that overwhelmed early career teacher or even someone in the early adoption phase, what we're trying to do is ensure that the quality of the prompting is there from the very beginning. So, um, it also can be aligned directly to your school's context because when you sign on with Teachers Buddy, we'll build that into the background of what we call the learning environment. And that will also take some of the cognitive load off your teachers because that's just automatically happening. Instructional learning frameworks, you've got templates in how you like unit plans, lesson plans, etc. set up that can all be there and in existence for them. So as you can see for Sarah, she can go through and place the information straight into the rubric generator. Now, if we think about your experienced resistor, your more experienced teacher, what we want to be able to do for them is allow them to maintain control because they can start with a trusted rubric that they've developed themselves. And what we would do is encourage them to upload it here in what we call a seed document. Okay. That way, then they can use this tool instead of generating something from scratch like Sarah. They get to use it to extend or refine their existing professional development. So we're not replacing it, we're giving them an opportunity to put the AI to the test. Okay. The other thing we've got is this learner group functionality built into Teachers Buddy. So, learner groups is our term for adaptive learning or differentiated learning. And we have some default groups that exist in Teachers Buddy already. So, you could upload your existing rubric and say, I need this adapted for a trauma-informed student in my class or a gifted and talented student in my class. And those default groups already exist. Or alternatively, you can come to add a group and you can create your own group that is very specific to your class. From these group types, you just simply jump in and load up the fields. This is a one-off process, and then that gets saved to your profile, and you can draw those learner groups into anything that you create basically will get adapted and amended for that particular learner group. So this is also another space for that experienced resistor to come in and reframe some of the work they've done for particular students or groups of students in their class. Okay. Also, for someone like Sarah, your early career teacher, this reduces so much cognitive load from an administrative point of view. So finally, I want to show you from the information that was plugged into the prompt. This is the rubric that was generated from Sarah's prompts. Now, everything in here is editable. So we always use that 80-20 rule. This has done the heavy lifting. The teacher gets to go in with their expertise and should be going in with their expertise to amend these and make edits or revisions. So if we think about the enthusiastic earlier adopter in our PD sessions, once this has been generated, we would have tasks that encourage them to pause, to evaluate this document, to refine it, to align the AI outputs with pedagogy, with the school context, with their classroom context. And also this can provide opportunities for them to work alongside those more experienced teachers during that phase to help them look at the output with that kind of a lens. So as you can see, this PD is a collaborative planning session. It can build teacher efficacy across faculties. It respects everybody's current stance on the use of AI and incorporating it and how they want to incorporate it into their workflows. So that's a 5-minute demo and a very broad overview of how PD sessions look when you sign on with Teachers Buddy. All of the professional development that you receive is provided free of charge when you become a partner school with us. Uh, Great. So that's my section, Samantha. I'm going to hand it back to you.
Terrific.
Close. So back to
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
Pause for a moment. I can pop the slideshow back up if you like.
That's okay. But yeah, thanks, Beck. That was terrific. I hope everyone got something out of that. I know I did. So a few things to note as we wrap. So Thursday this week, same time, is session 4 in this series on AI implementation from policy through to practice, as I mentioned at the top. If you've been wondering how to create the entire AI roadmap for your school, then that's the one for you. So please come back for that. I also just want to quickly give you a little bit of information about Skyline if you're not familiar. Some of you may know we're a not-for-profit supporting academically high potential students facing social and financial disadvantage to complete BCE and transition to university through a selective program that encompasses financial support, mentoring, and skill building programs. We also have a social enterprise that employs our alumni from the program, and we offer a series of practical supportive sessions for VCE students. If you're interested, I'm happy to have a chat. So please get in touch if that's of interest. A few thank yous before we finish. Thanks to Beck for stepping in today and walking us through the research so clearly. Thanks to Ben and to the Teachers Buddy team for the thinking behind this session, and thanks to all of you who turned up today for your time. We know it's a really busy start to term 2, and the fact that you're spending 45 minutes on this says everything about the priority you're putting into your staff, understanding and adopting AI sustainability. Please do stay in touch. We love hearing about how this lands in your schools, and we'd love to see you on Thursday as well. So take care, everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. We've got someone with a question, I think. Let me just see. I'm just going. Nope, I think they've gone. Welcome, Linda. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, there was a Q&A. Was there one here? Oh, someone did ask us, I don't know who it was. How do we approach leadership with an AI tool we like?
Oh, great question. Um,
So it's sitting in the queue. I'll put it in the chat. Maybe.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's all right.
I think in response to that question, there's a couple of factors to determine. Number one is what your current role is in the school. So if you are at that classroom leadership, classroom teacher level, I think the best place to go is to your middle management teacher, your head of department, your year level teacher, and discuss it with them first. If you're in that middle management level, then there would be opportunities in your curriculum meetings to talk to your deputy prins or next level up from you about those tools. And also just sharing those tools with your colleagues as well, and making sure that they're getting evaluated from your peers as well to make sure, I guess, you can have that collegial conversation at that level and take some of that conversation insights to a higher level. So I hope that helps answer that question. Does anyone have any other questions? I can see there's still a few of you on the webinar. Feel free to just pop them in the chat if you need to. We can be around for the next 5 minutes. No? All right, Samantha, I think we can sign off.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I think we can.
Great. All right.
All right, terrific.
Nice to join you, and thanks for
Yes.
having me.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you on
All
Thursday.
right.
Okay.
Okay. See
Cheers.
you
All
later.
right.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.